Hello, friends. I wanted to take the time to share a few of my thoughts and feelings about the current events taking place in Iran. I've had many friends and fellow pastors, others, reach out to me and ask for my opinion and what's going on. And so obviously this is deeply personal for me, being an Iranian-American. And so I would love to share these thoughts, and I hope that they'll just give some clarity, maybe some background, some encouragement, and maybe help us think how we should be praying for this incredibly decisive moment, I believe, in the history of the people of Iran. As I mentioned, I'm an Iranian-American. I was born in America when I was 2 years old. I was born in 1972. When I was 2, in 1974, my family moved back to Iran and lived there all the way into the outset of the Islamic Revolution in 78, 79. In fact, I remember Muslim revolutionaries on our rooftops shouting Allah Akbar, to Allah be the glory, as the revolution was mounting. And we actually left Iran 10 days prior to the Shah, the king of Iran, being deposed and fleeing. And so we moved back to America. I was in America shortly after the Iran hostage crisis took place. A group of Muslim revolutionaries took over the American embassy, and for 444 days, a group of Americans were held hostage. And so there was a lot of obviously distrust and hate towards my family being from Iran. It was a very difficult time. And so I've kind of grown up in this clash of these two worlds. And so I want to share a little bit of just kind of some background, because many people are too young to even remember that Iran used to be a friend of America, an ally of America and the West. In fact, if you look at some of the pictures in the 60s and 70s, I have pictures of my parents that I've seen. It was a very modern, civilized, Western culture. The people dressed much the same that a European nation or we would dress in America in those days. And there was freedom, and the people, it was a prosperous time in Iran. And then, of course, when the Islamic Revolution hit, everything changed. Iran went from being a monarchy to being a theocracy. But for the longest of time, Iranian people have loved American people. In fact, even during the Islamic regime, the time of the regime, when my friends from America have gone, some of them have been able to visit Iran, and they've come back and they've just marveled at how much the people there loved them, and we're so excited to see them. And I would say the Iranian people, by far for me, are some of the sweetest, kindest, most hospitable, loving people who give you the shirt off their back. And so you might think, well, what happened? Why the sudden change? And we see videos from that time of death to America, America being the great Satan. And I think we have to understand, first of all, to separate the people of Iran from the government of Iran. But we have to remember that the people and the country at large was really swept up in the rhetoric of the Muslim clerics, that the Shah of Iran, the king, was essentially a puppet to America and to Britain and to the West. And therefore, the Shah was kind of holding Iran back from being prosperous and becoming a first world country. And so the reasonings for that are many, but one in particular is the fact that in 1953, there was a coup, and the prime minister of Iran, a man named Mossadegh, was actually ousted in this coup that was backed by the West, and was overthrown, and the Shah was given more stability and power. And Mossadegh was actually nationalizing the oil of Iran. And so the people thought that it was really self-serving for the West, meddling in their affairs. And so that is why I think the revolutionaries just preyed on the fears of the people that the West is against us. And so it led to the revolution, and many in that time thought that it would lead to years of prosperity, but it was everything but that. For 47 years, the Iranian people have faced and been under an oppressive Islamic regime. I don't have to tell you, many of you know that there's incredible, horrifying stories of people being oppressed, being beaten, women being beaten by the morality police for not wearing their hijab in public. There is no freedom of speech. There's no freedom of religion. And so it's been nothing but oppression. You know, Jesus speaks about leadership in the kingdom of God and how it looks different than the leadership of the world. And Jesus says that leadership in the kingdom is actually not being served, but to serve. It's not running for selfish gain, but it's running after what's best for the people. And what we've seen is that when the power of the Islamic leaders has come under threat, that they have actually turned on their people. And much of that has, for me, been seen in the underground church in Iran. The incredible persecution that the church has faced in Iran for all of these years. You should read the stories of men like Hovsepian, men like Mehdi Dibaj, who have literally given their lives and been martyred to see the gospel spread. And I have been incredibly privileged to be able to meet and know some of the leaders of the underground church in Iran over the years. My good friend Farshid, who tells the story about many in his house church network being arrested in the time of Christmas a few years ago. And he tells the story of literally dropping off his kids at school and receiving the calls from all of his house church leaders that they've arrested us, they're taking us in, and then he receives a call from his home telling him he needs to come in and he's about to be arrested. And Farshid told me that he had a moment of thought that, man, could be a chance for me to just run and flee and get out of the country. But he heard the words of Jesus in his heart, where Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd who lays his life down for his sheep. I'm not the hired hand who sees the wolf coming and flees. And so Farshid went in and faced 5 years of horrible prison life in one of the most the difficult prisons of Iran. And so we've seen persecution because the people are really hungry for the gospel. And we've seen that Iran has the fastest underground church movement in maybe all of the world. Many coming to Christ through visions and dreams there. People hungry to receive the gospel. And so this is a huge, huge time. I do not obviously love war, and I would say that I'm praying fervently for innocent people in Iran, in Israel, in the Gulf states, and of course in Saudi Arabia and many other places. I don't want to see the innocent loss of lives. But let me say, if there is a change in the regime in Iran, and that Iran can move to be a country of democracy and freedom, this would be massive. First of all, politically, with the incredible influence that Iran has in the Middle East region, I think it would be massive for America, for the West, for peace throughout the world, for Iran to be free and to be democratic. But I would also say, as a Christian, how should you be thinking? If that underground church, led by courageous people who are willing to go to prison for their sheep, who are willing to lose their life for the sake of the gospel, if that underground church was to come overground and be able to spread the gospel without fear of persecution from the state, this could mean the beginning of a massive revival in Iran. And we could see the gospel spread throughout that country and throughout the diaspora, spread throughout the world. And so with that, I just want to tell you, how do I feel? I'm obviously nervous. I'm obviously burdened with the incredible strife that people are under in Iran. But man, I'm hopeful. And I ask you to join me in praying that God would move in power and that there could be a new dawn, a new day in Iran where the gospel, unfettered by the state, moves quickly and rapidly throughout the country. So would you join me in praying to that end? God bless you.